So, a couple of years ago, I worked at Starbucks. I have a lot of creepy stories from Starbucks. But anyway, it was in an interesting location. If you take a left out of the parking lot, you're in a pretty high crime area. But if you take a right, you're in an affluent area. It was pretty weird. Anyway, this incident occurred during a morning shift. I was working the window when this guy pulled up in his car. I told him his total, handled his payment, and then turned to hand him his drink. As I was leaning out the window, he smiled and said,
"You are cute enough to take."
I'm thinking, a weird compliment, but whatever. And then, the smile slides right off his face. It was creepy as hell. He drops the smile, and instead of taking the drink like a normal human being and leaving, he literally grabs my arm and pulls as hard as he can. This man is legitimately trying to pull me out of the drive-thru window and into his car. Immediately, I use my other arm to grab onto the side of the window, and I start pushing myself away from him. My coworker standing next to me starts screaming and grabs me by the waist and pulls as hard as she can. My arm pops out of his grasp, and my coworker and I hit the ground. Then, the creepy man speeds off. Anyways, 10 of 10 do not recommend this man, and I hope we never meet again. When I was in my late teens, I worked at a little coffee shop in my city. And this was around the time that smartphones hit the scene. I had just gotten my first phone and laptop. Anyway, we had this one regular customer who was very eccentric. He made me really uncomfortable, if I'm being honest. He had strange vibes. It was in the middle of a scorching summer, and he always wore many layers and a large parka with faux fur trim and sunglasses. I never once saw his eyes. He would get out of his car and run for the door in his big coat, shielding himself from the sun. He always ordered almost every item on the menu, but always said it wasn't for him, and that he didn't like the food there personally. One day, he came in and ordered the whole menu as per usual. I was checking him out at the cash register, and he leaned in and softly said to me, "You seem like a nice young woman. I need to warn you about something. I'm not supposed to tell anyone, but it honestly bothers my conscience keeping this information to myself." "What is it?" I asked. "Do you have a computer or smartphone?" he asked me. "Yes, I just got one," I answered. "Get rid of it, immediately," he said sternly. Why's that?" I asked. "I have a friend who has certain government ties. Nothing is private. The government will be monitoring everything, and it's all permanent. He told me they're planning to put up concentration-type camps in some major US cities. They'll use the info on your cell phones to decide who will go and where they will go. I've gotten rid of everything that can be traced, and I'm planning on running away soon. Please be safe," he urged. He left, and I kinda just shrugged him off as a crazy person, but it still weighed heavy on my mind a while. I went on to leave that job, and got a job as a hostess at a restaurant. About a year passed, and I'd pretty much forgot about the whole encounter, until one day, we crossed paths again. I was at the front host stand, where I greet and seat guests arriving at the restaurant, when a limousine pulls up, and a man gets out, accompanied by 2 large bodyguards at his side. It was the guy from the coffee shop. This time, he was wearing a sleek tuxedo and the same sunglasses. He entered the building and says, "You remember me?" I said I did. He said, "Do you remember what I said?" Again, I told him yes. He proceeds to pass the host stand and examines every inch of the restaurant as if he was looking for something. He then signals his bodyguards to follow him to the door. And before exiting the building, he says, looking back at me, "Don't forget." He got back in the limousine, and I never saw him again after that. It was the strangest thing ever, because it's like he knew he'd find me there. How? How did he find me at my new job? Perhaps he asked someone at my old job, but still, why go out of your way to make some flashy appearance like this? I just randomly thought about this and was wondering whatever became of that man and who the hell he was. So, before I begin, I just want to let you guys know that I made a throwaway for this post because of privacy. This particular incident took place over the spring of 2011 when I was about 15 or 16. My friends and I frequented the local Starbucks, and we had a great time there. Most of the employees were really great. One of them, though, David, was kind of odd. I didn't think much of him, but I always gave him the benefit of the doubt, even when my friends called him creepy. Like I said, we went there quite often, and like usual people, we had to go to the bathroom every once in a while. One day, we were there for a long time, probably like 4 hours, and we noticed David going to the bathroom quite often. We didn't think about it until about a month later, when we saw an article online. Apparently, David had put a camera into the bathroom and had been taking footage of young women and putting it on his computer. He would go to the bathroom about every half hour and collect and download the footage. And the police aren't sure if he uploaded them onto the internet or if he shared them at all. Unluckily for him, I'm severely lactose intolerant, so many of those milk-filled lattes probably didn't make the most attractive photos. He was arrested, and I haven't heard about him since. When I was younger, I worked for Starbucks for a while. Our store was in the shittiest part of the town, in a retail park. The area consisted of council flats, where the local council places druggies, ex-cons, and people who are on various benefits. So, although we had some nice customers who were there for a shopping spree, and there were quite a few shady people too. And this one guy came in and acted like a regular, asking every girl about how we were doing. He was really nice and chatty, but he made my skin crawl. The other girls loved him. The guy started to come daily. He usually came around 1 p.m. and stayed until closing, around 11 p.m. And sometimes, he was very pushy about staying even after closing. He always insisted on helping bringing in the outside furniture and stuff. Some managers and I were cautious, especially since we couldn't have anyone in the store after it was closed. He then started to pretty much groom these girls, asking if they were single, about their first boyfriends, and their favorite sex positions. Yeah, the youngest girl was 16. Mind you, I grew up with narcissistic parents, so I learned how to read people at a very early age. Also, I've always been interested in psychology, and I studied it for a few years. And this guy irked me from day one, but I was nice to him because I'm very passionate about not starving to death, so I needed this job. One day, he started to tell me that he had a fight with his parents, and they threw him out. He looked very sad, and told me that he now sleeps in his van, which was a white, unmarked van. However, since he knew that I was closing that day, he said he'd love to take me home, because it's not the nicest neighborhood. I almost laughed. This was such a textbook way to abduct young women. He was doing literally everything, just as my lecturer said that a serial killer or rapist would do. I just told him no, with a straight face, to let him know that I wasn't prey. He then moved on to the other girls, and I notified the manager about his creepy behavior in order to protect our young girlies. And one of them was this sweet, innocent, and a bit naive girl. The creepy guy naturally targeted her next, after my shift leader also laughed in his face. He told this young girl his sob story and expected empathy, which he got. She agreed to be taken home by him, and she even offered him a couch to sleep on. Luckily, my manager was a mama hen type, and she firmly told our young barista to be more careful about strangers and that she would be going home with her. Also, creepy guy was banned from the store, and the manager notified the security around the park. But I'm afraid I don't have a happy ending to this story. All I know that the police were later involved somehow, and he disappeared from the area. So, creepy Starbucks guy who's after young innocent girls, let's not meet again.